what are you doing?
Philosophy.
Really? Isn't philosophy, dead because it's not needed anymore? Like, Hawking believed that the torch of knowledge has been passed to, scientists, so they become our leaders of learning.
Dead? By saying that philosophy is dead, you're implying that it's not needed anymore. Just because something isn't presently needed anymore doesn't automatically mean it's dead. And arguing that philosophy isn't needed anymore is literally doing philosophy. Do you realize that? Scientists cannot investigate anything without some sort of philosophical analysis. And are you familiar with the black and white fallacy? By implying that philosophy must be either dead or alive, that's what you're committing. Did you know that before modern science was even labeled as such, it was known as natural philosophy? So philosophy has never been about either one thing or the other. It's always been about something else, like the philosophy of biology, of mathematics, of physics. And wasn't René Descartes both a philosopher and a scientist? And by claiming that philosophy is not needed anymore, you're presenting a bandwagon fallacy. Philosophy has never enjoyed widespread success. It may be true that it's considered to be a niche interest, however, this does not render it insignificant. This just means that philosophy cannot be based on its popularity, because philosophical ideas have shaped the world we live in today, and such ideas continue to address timeless questions about the nature of our existence. And isn't philosophy alive? Because philosophy is both necessary for and intertwined with scientific theories. For example, philosopher of science Nikola Tesla, who was known for the design of the modern alternating AC system, believed in the inexhaustible nature of cosmic energy, which is an important concept in modern quantum physics. In line with this, Tesla recognized that the physical laws that govern our universe are fundamentally interrelated and can be interpreted using the language of energy, frequency, and vibration.
Okay, but what about the fact that science is, progressing, very quickly, and, philosophy is just slow? We live in a modern era where we're impatient and we can't wait for answers, we need them now.
Okay, but the statement you just said contains 3 fallacies. For example, false cause. This argument suggests that because science is progressing quickly and philosophy is progressing slowly, there's a relationship between speed and importance. For example, the slower pace of fast food dining allows for diligent preparation, higher quality, and overall is healthier for you. While faster paced fast food sacrifices quality for convenience and speed. Even though something happens at a faster pace, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's better than another that happens at a slower pace. Your argument also contains a black and white fallacy, because this suggests that there are only 2 options at hand, either philosophy or science. It doesn't consider the overlap. Science itself can be interpreted as a branch of philosophy, specifically from the sub-branch philosophy of science, which is the study from philosophical perspective of the elements of scientific inquiry. Okay, and the argument also invokes feelings of impatience regarding the progression of philosophy by suggesting that the faster scientific progress is superior without providing evidence or explanations of this claim. Overall, I believe philosophy is alive because although science moves quickly with its new technologies and discoveries, most key ideas that form the basis of modern science were first explored through philosophical reasoning. These bases help progress the branch of science more quickly. For example, Democritus, a philosopher, proposed the idea of atomic structure, suggesting that all matter consists of tiny indivisible particles called atoms, becoming a fundamental aspect of disciplines such as chemistry and physics. Early notions of natural selection were studied by Democritus in ancient times and later by Detroit, proving that philosophy can be dead as long as science is alive.
Okay, fine, but what about it constantly changing over time? So answers are constantly changing. Science, therefore, gives us the true answers that never change.
No, but by this you are making straw man fallacy, since you claim that all the answers of philosophy change and the answers of science never change. It does not consider actual concept contributions objectively. You also make a compositional logical fallacy. Your argument assumes that changed philosophical concepts are the whole of philosophy, just as it assumes that irrefutable scientific statements represent all scientific theories. We all agree that it is impossible to make a generalized conclusion about a group of people, because it would be a stereotype. You also make the mistakes of contrasting as black and white. By this, you try to present your opinion as the only true one, promoting science as the only true way of obtaining knowledge. This approach does not take into account the fact that both disciplines have their own methods. Philosophy is alive precisely because of changes in it, and contributes to the development of humanity. Many people believe that scientists can answer philosophical questions, but philosophers have no business interpreting scientific questions. Philosophy deals with questions and problems that cannot be solved by facts alone. The contribution of philosophy of science lies, for example, in determining which evidence corresponds to which hypothesis. There are many debates about what scientific methodology should look like, and although there are philosophical questions, they are vital to any scientific research and theory.
Okay, well, philosophy certainly has acted as the jumpstarter for scientific research, and science has surpassed it. But then again, there are some fallacies into that as well. If I think about it, Hawking's arguments bring this slippery slope fallacy, which is, known as claiming a series of events, mostly formed in an improbable cause. The implication of, teenagers being too prone to video games therefore assumes that they're going to be violent or they have violent behaviors, saying that the consequence of not jumping into science would have resulted into slow development. Philosophy was not created for the sake of science to eventually take over as modern philosophy. There's also the logical fallacy found in the argument, which is to be identified as an argument that may sound logical and convincing, but it fails to provide evidence to support the conclusion. That just makes it, pretty illogical. Like saying a child says that unicorns exist because there's no evidence, when it's just asserting that it's true because it has yet to be proven false. Hawking's claims that science surpasses the ladder of philosophy also means that we should leave philosophy behind due to the new works of science. That is Hawking's logic, and the general assumption that what he thinks is factual without providing a definitive answer. And the last one is personal incredulity, which is essentially saying that if it's not to a person's understanding, then it's not true. If I think about it, the flaws in this statement lies with Hawking himself, as a scientist who's only viewing it in a scientific field. Because he only sees it in that perspective, he fails to realize that we need philosophy to be scientists. So I guess I could say that philosophy is alive because the subject itself and its discovery contributes its own way of how humans learn to understand. Science hasn't changed our way of understanding. It's approached and applied differently while still following the logistics of philosophy. Like, philosophy could be described as a jumpstarter, though it's through a timeline perspective and shown as an influence rather than creation, such as philosophy's hypothesis on the cell structure of plants, animals, and organisms started the development and principles of life forms and unity. I guess an analogy of this could be through owning a cell phone. Hawking is describing philosophy as like an old Nokia device, while science is the latest iPhone. Both phones share the same purpose, texting, calling, and communication, but that's not to say both don't hold the same value or operate similar. When there are, in fact, philosopher-scientists, such as Pythagoras, the Greek philosopher who studied mathematics, or Immanuel Kant, who studied the fundamentals of law and pictured it through systematic science. Both subjects are able to coexist in order to function and serve for different purposes.
Oh, now you finally get it. Sit down.
Oh, face the chair.
The chair.
Because you're...
Typically from a guy stays the same. Okay.
Inadequate should lie.
Think of an example. Oh, what about... Sorry.